Hello, everyone, and welcome to another review discussion on Player 2. My name is Matt Houston, and I am joined by the one, the only, the legendary Chris Button. How are you going, mate?
I'm doing very well, Hugh. So that's a very kind intro. Much appreciated.
Well, it's been a while since we've seen you around the trap, so you get a bigger entry the longer you stay away. So if you'd have stayed away longer, you would have been hailed as the Maharaja or something. But anyway,
Oh, all right. Okay. I'll keep that in mind.
keep that in mind for next time, yes. So, for people that are watching on video and not listening on the podcast feeds, you will clearly know we're here to talk about golf. So, I fully expect a whole bunch of you to turn off right now. But for those 10 of you that do like golf, like Chris and I like golf, hang around because we're going to talk about the latest PGA 2K23 game. Chris, you've been in. How far in are you on Tiger's return to video games?
Yeah, goodness. I'm not sure exactly how much I've played at the moment. I haven't checked the hours, but I've played a decent chunk of most of the core modes and spent a bit of time in my career and sussed out the new edition of Top Golf as well. So I've dabbled. I've dabbled in a fair few of what PGA 2K23 has to offer. What about yourself, Hugh? So
Yeah, I've been pretty much focusing on the career mode at the moment. I'm going to get to Top Golf a bit later, but the career is where the meat and potatoes are, I guess. So I just want to dive in there and check that out. Last PGA game, the career mode was very basic. It was fine. It was functional. You had your PGA tour. You worked your way up through the different Q school and all those sort of things, and then you got sponsors, and it was all very surface level. Immediately, there's some big changes here in the career, right?
yeah, there are, and I think a lot of it's sort of bringing it sort of closer into parity with the other 2K sports series,
Yeah,
namely the ever
NBA.
popular NBA 2K series,
Mm.
where we've got a lot of for starters, you can choose an archetype of your
Yep.
player. So you can choose to have a golfer character that you create and choose a particular archetype, whether they specialize in driving long bombs, whether they're a putting specialist or whether they're someone who favors accuracy and tempo and control over raw power. There's a few archetypes for you to mold your player around. And one of the cool things is that you can actually change this archetype at any given moment. You're not locked into
Mm.
one for the entirety of your career. So if you do find that one archetype isn't working for you, or you just want to check out another one out of sheer curiosity to see how it feels playing the course, you're more than welcome to do so. Which I think is a really cool thing, and I think it's a more approachable way rather than going, okay, here's your stat sheet, fill it out, fill out power, fill out accuracy, that sort of thing. I think it's more
I,
approachable.
I think it also, while being approachable, it makes it more in line with like real life because, these are archetypes that exist in golf as a sport. There are the John Daly's that are pure power, and then there's the finesse people, like Adam Scott and people like that are more about the finesse and less about the power. So it's nice to see that represented in a way that's realistic yet approachable in the game. I also really like the fact that there is no stat upgrades as such. You're not earning money to buy upgrades. That always feels like a cheap route in sports games to me. It doesn't feel genuine. And even training mini games and that are always a bit naff because once you're at professional level, there's only so much more you can do to boost your player. Whereas here, it's all based around your gear. So it becomes a little bit, I guess, RPG-like in that way, in that you can add kind of these little additions to your clubs and your different strokes that will, improve your power, but it'll reduce your accuracy, or it'll improve your spin, but it'll reduce the ability to fade or draw the ball. These little choices that you make based around your gameplay, it makes it really tailored to how you like to play, which is very cool, I think.
Yeah, and again, the ability to swap out equipment quite readily and quite
Mm.
easily to change the way you play. Or, for example, if you know you're about to play on say a links course with really bad conditions, a lot of wind to contend with, then perhaps you might want to equip some gear that's better at sort of flight control and that sort of thing. Whereas there might be other courses that are far more forgiving, and you think, yeah,
Mhm.
let's double down on power this time around. And the other interesting thing is that, so we've got the gear, we've got the archetypes, but we've
Mhm.
also got some degree of skill points, but
Yep.
it's not, as you alluded to, Hugh. So it's not like your traditional skill tree, or just adding points to buff out your attributes and stats and that sort of thing. They're skill points that I found by large were there to give you sort of little buffs and bonuses that most of the time tend to be activated when, say, you're struggling mid round, and it'll give you a little bit of a leg up to help. Say if you've missed a few fairways in a row, then your next tee shot, it'll activate this temporary power up, which will give you a little bit more forgiveness with your swing playing, or with your timing, or something
Yeah.
like that. But then there are those that are also activated by, say, going on a birdie streak, or hitting several fairways or several greens in regulation, that'll give you a little bit of a bonus to reward you and sort of boost your gameplay that way. So there's a few different layers and a few different elements there that's quite interesting, that I think on the surface, from what I've experienced so far, I like it. I
Mhm.
think I'm curious to see, once I get to, say, the final column of the skill points. I'll be very keen to see how different that works to, say, some of
Yeah.
the early skills that you can invest in.
Absolutely. It's a very interesting system, and once again, it seems to be focused around customizing to players and their own ability, and how they like to play. That goes with the difficulty settings. The game is incredibly adjustable to how you want to play. Like, really good. Like, this is something that HB Studios have done well since the Golf Club 2. The first Golf Club was very hard, but Golf Club 2, they added these accessibility and the way to adjust the difficulty. And since then, it's only gotten better and more refined. So you can refine your skill on your swing back, because sometimes, people find it hard to swing back and forward on the joystick. There's the traditional 3-click methods back, if you like to play that way. You can adjust how the ball behaves a little bit with your fade and draw and things like this. All these little meters that are there to help you, kind of tailor the game to how you want to play. Now, obviously, in competitive modes, there are, restrictions on that, because you can't have people playing on easy swing modes against the rest of the competition. But for those just wanting to play single player, you can really dial this game in to how it suits you, which is, I love to see that, especially in a sports game, and a daunting one. Like, if you're not a golf player, golf's a daunting sort of thing. So it's good to see that they've opened that door for new players.
Definitely, and it's interesting because we've had a little bit of a sort of a lull in terms of golf games in recent years, because obviously there has been the golf club before HB Studios joined the 2K team, and we've had PGA 2K21, which I think was very, very good. But then, sort of outside of that, we haven't had much in the way of simulation golf games. I mean,
You've had
when you
Mario
look,
Golf, you've
I was
had
I was about to
everybody's
say
golf.
Mario Golf.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had some very good arcade golf games, but very few simulation games. And I think PGA 2K23 is
Mm.
very, very good. And when you say about the difficulty settings and a lot of those modular settings that you can tweak, you can play PGA 2K23 like an arcade golf game, but on the realism in terms of the courses that you're playing on and the conditions and that sort of
Yeah.
stuff, with the realism of the simulation game. So you can really get the best of both worlds there. And I I think I'm not sure if this was an ego thing, or whether I just thought, okay, well, if I want to play some competitive online play, then I'm going to have to get used to it. I went straight for the pro difficulty,
Right. Yeah.
which tends to be not very forgiving when your stick movement's a little bit off. And
Yeah.
I had my ass handed to me very early on. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it bites, and it bites
Yeah.
hard if you want to go big. But that's part of the challenge, right? And I'm probably a bit beyond. I play on the moderate, whatever the medium setting is, and I actually play against easy opponents, because to me the game of golf isn't about trying to get 12 under on the round. It's about trying to beat my best score. So I'm not worried about beating the opponents. And that does get in your way in the career mode if you're not beating people. So I just sat them at easy. I think there's another 2 difficulties below easy. So if I'm getting 6 or 7 under, I'm probably going to win the tournament. But it's kind of about challenging me, and that's always a bit. I mean, I play golf in real life, so and that's the goal of it, right? I don't care about beating the bloke next to me. I care about beating myself. So that's a good thing that the game does too. It doesn't punish you for not wanting to compete against some ridiculous AI. It lets you just play and work your way through the career mode at your own pace.
And that's exactly right. I mean, that's why, that's where in real life golf you've got handicaps to really
Mm,
level the field so that someone who's very experienced and very skilled can compete on a relatively even and level playing field to, say, a beginner or someone who doesn't have the same level of strength as another player. But
yeah,
one thing I found really interesting, and I've been really persisting with the pro level difficulty,
yeah,
and it's very challenging. It's you can be having a good round, and then just like in real golf, all it takes is one bad shot, one slice, one hook, one shank,
yeah.
and all of a sudden you have a blown out score which ruins the whole round.
The
So
world turns to crap very
it
quickly.
it certainly does. So yeah, as far as emulating the game of golf, it does a
Yeah.
very good job of that. But one thing that was really interesting was one thing, and I don't remember this being quite so difficult for me with PGA
Mm,
2K21. So I don't know if this has changed since or whether I've just gotten worse through atrophy.
yeah.
But I've found the downswing timing to be really tough in terms of trying to get it not too fast, not too slow, but somewhere in the middle, the
Yeah.
Goldilocks sort of measurement. And I actually took to watching some YouTube videos to see some of the content creators talking about this. And what I find really, really interesting is the way that they're talking about this game. It's like as if you're watching a real life tutorial on how to perform real golf shots and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So the whole culture and the way that people talk about this game, a digital golf game, is very similar to the way that people talk about real life golf. And I think that's possibly one of the greatest compliments that I can pay this game
Absolutely.
is that it's so close to the real game in terms of the technical details that you have to master to be able to display a decent level of skill. So I'm really impressed by that, even though my scorecards are less than impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. It really goes that extra length to simulate the real world sport, and that's something I think HB Studios has always done well. I mean, for those that don't know, they originally worked on the Tiger Woods golf series for EA, and then when EA kind of shat the bed a bit. They left and started their own thing, or a kickstarted golf game, believe it or not, and then were bought up by 2K later and have come full circle and are now working on the PGA Tour again, which is amazing. But this game, the big advertising claim to fame, and honestly, I think it's noticeable, is that Tiger Woods isn't only the cover athlete, but he was a chief advisor during the making of the game. Now, I don't think they've had that luxury they've obviously had golfers before, but they wouldn't have had a golfer of Tiger's level. Let's face it, there's not many of them around. And I think that's actually noticeable in the way the game is presented, not only in just the realism of it, but in the way the commentators talk, in the way the courses feel, in the way the ball lie is examined, and all those sort of things. It feels incredibly real and true to life. And I think there's every chance that that's as a result of bringing Tiger on in an actual advisory role, not just being the bloke on the front cover.
Yeah, it's always difficult to tell, and you'd love to be a fly on the wall in the situations where they bring on an athlete to be an executive producer, because you sort of think, okay, what level of involvement do they actually have? How much
Mhm.
input do they have? But I do certainly agree that having the Tiger Woods prestige has added another level of gloss to the presentation, and I
Mm.
think it's some of that 2K pedigree now that 2K and HB Studios have worked together for longer, so that there's more of that 2K polish that you see in a
Yep.
lot of the other sports games come across here as well. So I totally agree that the presentation has stepped up another level. I think the commentary, I think I think it was pretty good in
Mm.
2K21, but I think they've got more commentary lines now so that they don't repeat quite as often, and they
Often,
don't,
yeah.
yeah, they don't quite grate as much.
Yeah.
And I think the addition of some of the women players as well, and I think there's also one of the women commentators as well, whose name has escaped me, but I think there's
Yeah,
not
she
a,
does the on-course calling. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and there's not a lot of the pro players currently represented in the game, but I do believe they've said that they'll add more as time
Yeah.
goes on.
There's currently 12, including Tiger. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
One
There
of
is
one of
also
the
Michael Jordan.
yeah, of course, of course. Did I also see that Steph Curry is going to be making an
Yeah.
appearance in some
Yeah.
some way? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yep.
so there's a lot of that cross promotion and cross athlete sort of thing. But as far as the women athletes, I was really chuffed to see Brooke Henderson included, because I was fortunate enough to see her play live when they did some of the LPGA stuff here in Adelaide, and
Yep.
she hits a very long ball. So very happy for her to see her represented in the game. So
Yeah, absolutely.
hopefully some Aussies like Minjee Lee and those can get their digital likenesses in the game at some
Yeah,
stage
because I
as
don't
well.
think that on the men's side there's any of the Aussies there either.
Well, I don't think there'll be Cam Smith anytime soon.
No, no, the live golf situation. I wonder if EA, that's the, because EA, for those that don't know, are making another golf game. So I wonder if they go the live golf route.
I as much as I'd love to see that, I reckon there's probably next to no chance, because they're also working with PGA. So
Yeah, yeah,
I think by virtue of any PGA association, we're not
they
going to
won't be
see
able to.
any of Greg Norman, any Saudi mates
No,
in the
no,
game.
no. Anyway, for those that aren't following golf, that means nothing to you. But anyway, Google
Well,
that.
if you know nothing about golf and you've watched this far, well
You've
done.
done well. Well done. Well done. The last thing I want to talk about is the rivalry system, which I really, really like this time. Last game, it was a bit meaningless, to be honest. They arbitrarily assigned you a rival while you were playing, and you beat him, and you got bonus XP or something silly like that. Now, you pick one of three. There's 10 tiers of rivals to work through. Assuming I'm guessing I'm up to about the fourth tier now, but you get up to Tiger Woods. I'm assuming he's the last guy that you've got to, it makes sense, right? But it's their pros. They have their likeness in the game, and part of the challenge is not only winning the tournament, but making sure you do better than your rival, and that uses Stableford scoring. So you do that, and you get bonus equipment. You might get some gear from their sponsor. So for example, I just beat Bubba Watson, and he's sponsored by Ping, so you get a Ping putter as a result, and it adds to your bag. It's much more generous in the way it doles out gear and money and that this time. So you feel like you're constantly being rewarded, whereas the last game it was a bit dry, in that career mode. You weren't getting the little carrot on the stick as often. So it's a nice new system.
Yeah, it's one that I'm keen to explore a bit deeper, because I have sort of spread myself a bit thin over a few game modes. I haven't really had a lot of experience with the rival system, but I do like the way that it operates, and it adds another layer of that game within a game, which
Mm.
keeps things interesting and gives you sort of several goals or several things to think about beyond just trying to, say, beat your own score or hit the top of the leaderboards and that sort of thing. Because I remember some of the best golf games from my opinion, were the Tiger Woods EA games of the
Hmm.
mid 2000s, where they did such a great job of emphasizing these Stableford matchups, or these
Yeah.
match play matchups against other pros, that would lead up to Tiger Woods, who is
Mhm.
built up to be this mythical, unbeatable figure, playing him on a Sunday in his traditional red polo.
Yeah.
So
To be
that's
fair, in that time, he was almost unbeatable.
oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, that's something that I think is a really cool addition as well, and adds another level to the career mode. I think one thing that I'm sort of thankful for that the career mode lacks currently, and to be honest, I hope it sort of lacks it for a while longer, is that it doesn't try and shoehorn some obnoxious narrative or story that
Mm,
some of the NBA games, let's just some of them are better than others, but
mhm.
by and large they really great. And I don't know if it's sort of like a I don't know if some of it's sort of lost in translation, sort of the difference between Americans and Australians, but
Yeah.
I don't
I
vibe
think
with a
it's a
lot of
cultural
it.
thing in a lot of ways. I actually didn't mind this year's NBA because the main guy was a
Okay.
bit of a lovable dork, whereas in previous years he's been an arrogant douchebag, and I hate arrogance. But Americans seem to, love that, that arrogant
Yeah,
sportsman persona. Whereas Australians, I don't think gel with that at all. We prefer our heroes humble in a lot of ways,
that's
I think.
yeah, sort of that
Um,
tall poppy syndrome a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of that. So yeah, I think that's. I don't mind the idea of a story in a sports game,
Mm,
but I don't know that it would work in a golf game as such. It's not the sort of all-encompassing mighty media empire that basketball or soccer is. So
mm.
I don't know that they would ever go down that route. They may. I could be proven wrong. But what I'm more impressed about is the lack of VC bullshit in the game.
Yes, yes.
Um, I was always really worried that when 2K took a hold of this, that VC crap would get in there. Uh, there is a bit of it there, but it's all completely optional and it's all absolutely easy to ignore. There is a season pass coming, but it's more for those people that are playing it every day that are just, competing online, and it's all cosmetic. There are some little ball boosts that you can get, but you get so many of them just playing anyway. You don't need to buy them. So yeah, I think it's very innocent in its microtransaction, which you can't say for NBA some years.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I totally agree with that, and I have no problem with monetization in games
Mm,
in general because games are bloody expensive to make. They got to make their bank somehow, and
yeah.
even charging you $70 at retail, doesn't quite cover it sometimes. But the way that they've done it, I think, is as far as monetization goes, is pretty ethical and it's
Yeah.
pretty straightforward. I do like the sort of battle pass approach that they've done, or the
Mhm.
clubhouse pass, whatever they've
Yeah.
called
Yeah.
it, because yes, if you pay, I think it actually went live today or
Yeah.
at the time of recording today, and your pass is I think $16.95 Australian dollars, and it's for a 90-day pass where each time you level up, you'll get a new little item, which, as you mentioned, is cosmetic. But even on the free tier, like you would in Apex or Fortnite or whatever has a battle pass in it, every few levels you will get something, even if you
Don't
haven't
pay.
paid
Yeah.
for it. And that stuff is stuff that you can actually use to augment your character
Yeah.
and sort of upskill them a little bit. So I think they've done that quite well.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's the most that sort of system is the kind of the I guess the most ethical way to make money in these sort of situations, I think. And honestly, I'm the same. I don't begrudge them wanting to make extra money because running an online service is a
Mm.
cost in itself, So all those things cost money. So I don't mind them having that. I just don't like when it gets predatory, and that's not the case here at all.
Yeah. I think just as a quick aside, I'll briefly touch on my experience with Top Golf
Yeah, absolutely. Keen to hear.
because that was one of the features that was billed close to launch, saying, "Hey, we've got Top Golf now." And for those who aren't familiar, it's almost sort of like going to a driving range slash golf theme park sort of version. In Australia, there's one on the Gold Coast, which is quite close to some of the theme parks, and I've been fortunate enough to have a go, and it's quite a lot of fun because you're hitting towards these targets on a driving range, and there's the bar and live music and food that you can enjoy, and best played with a bunch of people in the same
Yeah.
venue, riff off one another. And I think that's the element that's a little bit lacking here in the PGA 2K23 version of Top Golf, is that it does quite a faithful recreation of the physical aspect of Top Golf, in terms of you are hitting from an elevated driving range towards these targets, you score points. But a lot of what's great about Top Golf is sort of the atmosphere and the
Mm.
party type vibe around it all. So I think the video game version of Top Golf would be a fun little side game, mini
Yeah.
game, if you will, to play with mates, whether it's online or on the couch. I think that could be a little bit of fun, but playing it solo is
Yeah.
a little bit dull, and
Bit
does.
empty.
Yeah, it does. That's a really great way of putting it. It feel a bit empty,
It
but
it almost
yeah,
strikes me as something they could make into an NBA Jam style golf experience that you buy online for $10 or $15 as an arcade. The old Xbox Live Arcade title, something like that. That's what it strikes me as. But beer and golf swings instead of beer and bowling, or beer and darts or something. So
definitely. I mean, it's nice that it's there, and perhaps the fact that Top Golf is there, and it's a bit of a global brand. That's something they'll possibly iterate and add more to as
improve.
time goes on, or in future editions as well.
Yeah. Excellent. All right then. Well, last chance to talk about PGA. Have we missed anything? Have I forgotten anything? Have you forgotten anything? Last chance.
I think we've covered pretty
Mm.
well most of the fundamentals. I think now that the servers are live,
Yep.
I'll perhaps check out a bit of the competitive and online stuff. But if you're just playing solo, there's plenty to do. So
Yeah,
there's no stress
absolutely.
about having to jump online to get your money's worth.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really enjoying it. I like it seems like a really good improvement over the last game. It's not a giant leap in terms of mechanics and things, but in a lot of ways around the actual game of golf, that it's improved significantly. Career modes and sponsorships and all those sort of things have received a nice boost, making it feel more like a complete kind of AAA finished product, which is really good. And also, I love the story of HB Studios, their whole history in it, and it's great to see them doing really well. So yeah, I'm happy for it. I'm going to keep playing it, and you'll see my review on Player Two soon. Chris, where can we find you on this crazy worldwide weird web place?
Yeah, goodness. I think the best place to follow me these days is on Twitter, because I'm usually writing for a bunch of different folks at any given moment. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Bibbyboy, and that's BIBBYBHOY, where I'll tweet about all things games, tech, and sport, whatever tickles my fancy at any given moment.
Big Bash is coming up, so we'll have some tweets there.
Indeed, indeed.
And you can find me at Huso81 on Twitter, or Player2AU. As I like to say, there's more swearing on Huso81, less swearing on Player2AU. I keep it professional for the team. But yeah, you can find us there. Also, make sure you head to player2.net.au. Check out our news, reviews, previews, podcasts, videos, opinion pieces. Look, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I basically say no to no one. So anyone wants an idea, they get it. I say yes. It goes up. So check it out. And thank you for joining us on this review discussion. Look out in the near future. There's one coming up with Chris. He's turning up for another one, and Jess, and it involves a certain annoying Ubisoft mascot. So yeah, look out for that in the near future. We'll see you then. Bye.